everybody, and welcome to another live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'll be the voice that you'll be listening to for the next couple of hours. This is a live and interactive show, and perhaps it is your first time joining us, which is wonderful. It's great to have you. If you would like to send through your comments and questions, you are more than welcome to. You can head over to the WildEarth website, and if I'm not mistaken, you can still comment away on the YouTube chat for just the first part of the show. So let me know who's watching, where you're from, and looking forward to all of the questions. But we're at mud. We're starting off the day with Stumble McCurdy now. We're at Chamala, which is in Madikwe, a game reserve, where it's been fairly quiet at the Waterhole this morning. But thankfully, this herd of zebra have popped on down for a quick drink with a young foal at one of the mare's side. You can see it just on the left. You might have heard that whirring noise in the background. That is from a black cuckoo, another one of their calls. Yesterday, we heard the typical, which is quite an eerie call in the bush, but we only hear it in the summer months. But that sound is one of my favorites to hear, and I haven't heard it in a very, very long time. But as you know, we've got to check out what the weather is at the rest of the location. So let's go do that. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a fairly pleasant day. Some showers forecasted. And I always like to let you know what the weather is in Hoedspruit. It's been overcast. The wind is very blustery, and it's actually a nice cool day for a change, which we have been looking forward to. However, the temperature is very different in Madikwe. It's going to be a high of 36 degrees Celsius. So also a bit of wind. Could hear it earlier, but thankfully it sounds like it's dying down a little bit. But now we wait. We hope that some more wildlife comes down. It's a very different scene from what it was yesterday, where there were just so many elephants about, lots of buffalo tucked underneath all these shrubs, and a few antelope species popping in here and there. But I hope we're not going to have a very quiet day, otherwise, I'm going to be so sad. And on the YouTube chat, there's quite a few of you that are joining, so I'll just run through that. Wally, you're here. Jive Bunny, hello. Keeping up with the system. Stephen Rousseau, great to have you all on board. Looking forward to conversation topics that we can kind of discuss this morning, whether it's about conservation or any wildlife or anything really. I suppose this is a fun, safe place to be, where you can just relax and unwind, hear the sounds of nature, the wind blowing in the camera mic, and hopefully some actual animals to go with it. Right, I haven't been over to the camera in Namibia for quite some time, so let's go check out what's happening at Okokui. Here we go. The usual suspects: springbuck, gemsbok, a little grebe in the water, and a bird that's calling that I'm not sure what it is. That's an interesting sound. Oops. Why do I have an alarm going off? That's bizarre. Sorry about that, everybody. What is that call? Somebody help me. I don't know if I've ever heard a bird make that sound before, but I also have not been to Namibia. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pull up a bird list for Etosha and see if I can figure it out.
EcoTraining's professional field guide course can make your dreams a reality. This comprehensive program comprises 5 months of theoretical and practical training in the African bush with highly qualified instructors in multiple locations. Enroll today and receive 5,000 Rand off using the promo code. If you've just finished school or tertiary education and you want to head into the wild, EcoTraining's professional field guide course is for you.
So unless there's a tree, perhaps with a bird that creates quite a large nest that they could nest on top or inside, otherwise they're going to would have had to have nested towards the tree line. But hopefully, in just a little bit, the camera will eventually make it around to the geese. As you know, this delay can be quite frustrating at times. Here we go. The geese not worrying too much and going right up to the Gemsbok. I wonder what their next move is going to be, or how the Gemsbok are actually going to react to the geese. You can see there's one individual just glancing over. I mean, neither species are a direct threat to one another. However, a charging Gemsbok at the geese would not be a very pleasant experience, especially for those goslings. I wonder why the geese have decided to go off to the Gemsbok. Also hope this picture breakup is just on my side. If it is on your side too, I do apologize. Technology, right? So this is interesting. Oh, look there! Look at that goose going right up to the Gemsbok and almost touching it. I mean, we know Egyptian geese are territorial birds, but I wouldn't have imagined that they would have chased a rather large animal out into the open. I'm wondering though, with the Gemsbok maybe defecating of the in the water, if that's the case, perhaps the Egyptian geese are making use of the feces. I know fish obviously do that quite often. They'll hang around any mammals that are in the water, and they will feed on those nutrient-rich pellets that can sometimes be deposited straight back into the system. So I don't know why the Egyptian geese are like that, but it always makes me chuckle to how birds are so brave and stubborn. True. Well, not all birds, but we know the Egyptian geese and the blacksmith lapwings are notorious for this kind of behavior. I mean, they've got the entire waterhole to move around in to find a safe spot, but of course they choose the area where the animals are drinking. You can see the goslings just moving off, and the adults will keep a close eye on them. Perhaps they're getting a little bit tired and want to rest their weary legs and maybe head towards it looks like they're heading towards the sort of shallow water. Also, if there are any birds of prey around, they are sitting ducks, quite literally. And so moving towards the calcrete, all these rocks over here could help camouflage them and also provide some kind of protection. They're not going to be able to tuck themselves underneath the rocks, which is the best bet. But the adults, of course, will also uh, keep their eyes open and will defend the goslings. And then, Lenny, you're wondering what would eat the goslings at this waterhole. So it'll be birds of prey of varying kinds. You could, yeah, so anything that's kind of passing by. Doubt that there's anything in the water that would eat them. I don't think that there are. I don't actually know if there's fish in these sodic pans. That I am uncertain of. Whether, because obviously this water hole is pumped with fresh water, but I still think it will be kind of brackish. Just because of all the minerals within the soil itself. Obviously, if you head to a Tosha pan, that's topped up with water, and again, it becomes well, it contains a high sodium content. But anyways, I can't say that I've seen any fish. I haven't seen a heron or anything pulling anything along those lines out of the water. But it's not to say that they couldn't occur here. A lot of the time, fish eggs attach themselves to birds, and when they travel to new areas, you'll find eggs will get deposited in the water, and then the whole sort of ecosystem, that life cycle, starts again. And the weirdest place I've ever seen fish before was when I was in Sri Lanka, and it was in Yala National Park. We climbed to this really big rocky outcrop. I mean, it it was really high. There was no water around except for these little freshwater pools, these little catchment areas from when the rain had fallen, and there were fish up there, which was bizarre to see. Now, there was a question from Yellow Duck, and Yellow Duck, you're asking, does concrete only occur or happen in desert areas? So, for the most part, yes. So, it doesn't have to be a desert, but it can be a semi arid environment too. And essentially, how concrete is formed, it's formed on, or because of the sort of calcareous materials. And these occur because of climate fluctuations in these arid environments, and that concrete is then dissolved in groundwater, and then, well, naturally, obviously, the rocks will then start to develop. What is that sound? Is that cicadas? Can you hear that? That high pitched. It sounds very much like cicadas, which is an insect, an arthropod. I don't know, or somebody's boiling the kettle. A little bit difficult to tell. I always find it challenging to kind of understand the sounds that we hear on the cameras. It's always much easier when you're there and you can kind of pinpoint where is the sound actually coming from. Now it's stopped. Interesting.
Attention all teachers. Round up your bundles of joy and get comfortable because WildEarth Kids Safaris are here to stay. Go to our website and sign your class up for a special virtual safari with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Good afternoon or good morning, boys and girls from all over the world.
Spoil your kids with some wild fun for 1 hour every weekday on our afternoon drives. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Catherine, you said that you actually planned your lunch break so that you could watch the first hour of Live at the Waterhole. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. I think that's a great strategy to have, and hopefully more people will follow. In It's also nice to see some clouds developing in Okukuyo. We are typically blessed with clear skies, but this is the time that the rains are supposed to fall. Everything has been a bit delayed at the moment. And there's a couple clouds that look like they're starting to climb vertically, although got a long way to go, and a few others that are starting to get that sort of very heavy, dark base, which is always a good sign. Stephen Rousseau, you've said apparently the African lungfish can survive severe droughts and be out of water for many months, surviving in the hardened mud. You're quite correct. Barbel or catfish, also a species that are able to do that. So they would typically form a mucous membrane around their bodies just to help keep them nice and moist until the conditions are, I suppose, more perfect, more suited to their needs. And not all fish will survive, but they can survive a long time. But you'll see if they do emerge after, many months or even a year or so, that they'll look quite emaciated. Imagine energy levels will be low, and it'll be important for them to top up on food to try and get back into a condition where they'll be healthy and fit and have a better chance of surviving any predators or anything else that might come their way. But the only way to really find out if there are fish in a water hole is to take a fishing net and cast it out. I don't know how many times you'd have to cast it out and in different areas of the water hole and pull it back and then inspect and see what you pick up in the net. And then, of course, releasing them in a fairly quick manner as to not disturb them. But I most certainly won't be casting any nets into the water hole, and the the public will not be able to do that. You'd have to be a researcher specializing in this kind of field, and obviously have all sorts of permissions from the national parks boards or whichever other officials need to be notified. Picasso, you've asked what is the typical lifespan for a springback? So, as you know, animals in captivity live a much longer life, but out in the wild like this, you'll probably find that they would live between maybe 7 and 12 years, somewhere around there. Again, it's just kind of going to depend on predator density, I suppose, what the environment is like. Is it prone to diseases? Are there lots of parasites? Is there going to be a drought? Is there going to be enough food available? Springbuck, of course, are a species just like the Gemsbok that have got and are specially designed to be able to combat these dry, these arid environments, uh, rather than a lot of other animal species. But again, the impala, for an example, they're mixed feeders and they're the most successful antelope species in Africa. They're so widely distributed all over the continent, and they'll also adapt and specialize in an environment like this. So the animals that live here, their strategy is going to be very different to say the animals that live in the low veld, so in Djuma or yeah, anywhere else, even in the Eastern Cape, they'll have slightly different ways of surviving, which is so interesting. And that's also what makes animal behavior so fascinating is how different animals survive in the condition or in the set of conditions that they are given. And Ray Jubei, you actually said that. Sure, that's a great South African word. Sure, can mean a number of different things. You've mentioned that Okukuyo does need some rain. I'm not sure if they've had any rain yet. It doesn't look like anything significant. Again, our view of this area is quite limited. We're only just seeing a small section of it, and unless there's any little natural depressions, back towards the tree line, this ground is not going to hold water very well. And it's not like animals can really help with wallowing. You can't really wallow around on rocks. That's going to be a fairly unpleasant experience. And like again, in the low felt, uh, animals that will wallow in a small footprint that's even filled up with mud, say something like warthogs, are largely responsible for creating natural pans. Takes a bit of time, but again, just another little place for them to be able to drink water and not necessarily rely on visiting uh, the man-made structures. Mary Kate, you said, what do I wish I got to do more or less of during my studies to become a safari guide? Ooh, this is an interesting one. Something that I miss that I don't get to do so much now, but it's a large part of the guide training and even just working at lodges. I miss going and doing a bit of habitat management uh, and kind of learning more in depth about what goes on within an ecosystem and how we as people can help rectify it. So, like erosion control, removing of invasive plant species, or even encroaching plant species. Like, how much should you remove? Again, I think that's going to be dependent on the area that you're kind of working in. So that's something that I wish we got to focus on a little bit more. I think there's definitely room for for that to kind of be covered. What else? I'm just trying to think. What else did I wish we got to do less of? I don't know. It was all kind of fascinating. Each module is different and interesting in its own way. Maybe again a little bit more focusing a bit more on arthropods. We do learn quite a bit of arthropods, a lot about life cycles and why insects are so successful. But it would have been great to have learned how to identify more species. But again, that's not necessarily something that the syllabus needs to cover. That is something that you as an individual really need to go out and kind of focus on. There will definitely be some more things. What would I wish I would have done less of? Hmm. studying. I'm just joking. Filling in workbooks. That can be quite a time consuming process. And that's one of the tricky things about becoming a guide. There's various courses that you can do. And as you know, Wild Earth obviously is partnered with Eco Training, which is Africa's largest training provider in terms of training people to become safari guides. So they've got a host of different courses that you can do. They have their professional field guide course, which is about a year long, and it entails roughly 6 months, not quite 6 months, of theory and practical training, and then the rest of the time is to go on to a placement and start to get some actual experience in a lodge or something along those lines. But something that I always recommend to people, especially if you're a professional in another career, and guiding is something that you want to pursue, but you just don't have the time. You can't take off 2 months of work to be able to come out and do the qualifications. I highly recommend Eco Training's online courses. They're great. And doing the theory component for the apprentice field guide qualification, write the exam, do the workbooks, all of that. And then when you go to do your practical, which is typically a 35-day course, then you're just focusing on learning how to conduct a safari experience and identifying plants and everything else that comes with it. I do see students being quite stressed, and I can, of course, talk from experience, although the guiding qualification, the initial one, is much longer. I had to do my first guiding course in 28 days, and now it's 55 days. Um, and we were doing 2 lectures a day and 2 activities. So your day was literally just filled during the middle with theory and lectures, and then of course early mornings and late afternoons into the evening, and then of course you've got to fit in the studying to prepare for the test. So that can be quite tricky to do. So I love the fact that there's this other option that allows people who aren't able to get too much time off of work, that they can still start making a career change or even just follow a passion without having to leave your job. You can also hear a couple of flies buzzing about. Right, let's go back to Jamala. It looks like an elephant has come down to have a drink. Oh, here we go. A couple of different animals. One elephant bull, and a small group of wildebeest, and a couple of zebras now having a drink. Wildebeest don't even look that bothered. Heads right down, not as cautious as the zebra are typically around the waterhole. Still waiting for the day that a pride of lions is going to come charging out at as some of these animals, but can't have it all. He'll just patiently wait and hope that something along those lines is going to happen. LG7, you're so sweet. You said that you're always impressed with my knowledge about everything and how I describe things to you. Man, I've still got a lot to learn. So much to learn. And then sometimes the information that I've read 1,000 times gets accidentally locked up in these boxes that I find so difficult to to first find the key and then unlock them, which frustrates me incredible. But I suppose we've only got limited space, and I wish that I had a photographic memory. My goodness, that would be so helpful as a safari guide, just to be able to retain that information, not have to read scientific papers over and over and over to understand what they're actually talking about. Oh my goodness, here's a question, Picasso. You said, is the zebra mating a long drawn out affair since there's no bone in the penis? I have to tell you some firstly, I'm going to tell you some traumatic stories. It's not about zebra, but it's about horses. And because zebra and horses are in the same family, Equidae, and their reproductive organs are very much the same, I suppose that in a sense, this all applies. But when I was younger, I grew up for a part of my life. I grew up on a thoroughbred stud farm, and so those are kind of very athletic horses that are bred in South Africa. I suppose it's similar to a quarter horse in the US, but they are bred for racing. They are fast, really can take off. And when I was younger, I don't even know how old I was. I must have been in primary school, so younger than 13. I went, and I don't think I quite understood what I was getting myself into. I went and witnessed a few coverings, so specific stallions mounting females to obviously this is selective breeding, hoping to get the best possible genetics from, especially if they horse racing horses, that they're going to have the best possibility of being winners. And that was quite a sight. I'll actually never forget the first stallion I ever saw mount a mare. I don't know what her name was, but his name was El Mufti, and he's quite a well-known thoroughbred, especially in the Eastern Cape in South Africa. And that was a terrifying experience. And yes, it did go on longer than what you would see with, say, something like a lion or a leopard. Uh, so interesting. Um, it's still fairly quick though, but I can't say in terms of how long it will take. I think it also depends on the technique and how successful say males are at mounting a female pretty quickly and getting the job done.
Hickory dickory dock. The kids ran to the spot. The clock struck 4, the kids sat down, hickory dickory dock. Our Kids Safaris bring interactive entertainment and learning to the future protectors of our world for 1 hour every weekday during our safari drives. Watch it live on your nearest device. Don't miss out on the fun. WildEarth. It's in your nature.
There's another great question that I just saw from Stephen Rousseau. You said, as a guide, in my experience, while on safari, what do you focus guests' attention on when one gets those quiet days and every animal seems to be hiding away from you? Well, Stephen, I have a lot of those days, unfortunately, for my guests. And so this is where guiding techniques and soft skills are so important. And I suppose, Mary Kate, this goes back to your the question that you asked about what do you wish you could have focused on more and then less when training to become a guide. I do think that guiding skills, I'm sorry, guiding techniques and soft skills uh, definitely deserve more focus because that in the end is how it teaches you how to conduct a safari. So it's one thing having all that knowledge, but if you don't know how to host a game drive, then what, right? That's the whole point of it. So it takes a bit of time uh, for guides to develop their own style and personality. And that just comes with experience and trial and error. You've got to be flexible as a safari guide. You can't just guide in one way. You need to ultimately uh, be able to entertain any kind of guests. So Stephen, when you're able to bring in those guiding techniques and soft skills, uh, that's where you're not describing and showing guests animals. You're actually creating an experience. I think we just need to pan the camera to the right so that we can carry on watching the elephant while I have this discussion. And right, it starts right from the get-go, from when you meet people, and you can kind of set the tone, right? You obviously ask people what their interests are, that type of thing, and everybody's going to say the same thing for the most part: leopard, lion, rhino, hippo, giraffe, zebra, elephant, buffalo, you kind of name it, all the big mammal stars, and of course the reptiles like crocodiles and birds and whatever the case may be. And instead of, and I always like to describe this as students, you're not going to see animals all the time, right? Unless you're driving somewhere like the Masai Mara or Mara Triangle. And because it's an open grassland ecosystem, it can just sustain a much larger diversity of animals and then also more of those animals. So there you drive around and you almost see something all the time. I would start off a drive, maybe your guests say, they really want to see elephants, and it's an afternoon drive. It's nice and hot, so okay, where are you going to find elephants? So say to your guests, while you're driving, you don't have to just stop and talk to your guests all the time. Another guiding skill is you learn how to drive really slowly, stay on the roads, but also look back and make eye contact and chat to your guests. That's very important to do. And instead of just saying we're going to go to a waterhole and sit and wait for elephants, you can say to your guests, well, it's such a nice hot day today. What we'll do is maybe if there's a river system, we'll meander along this big river. The elephants at this time of the year, when it's nice and dry, they'll quite often dig, water from the nice fresh water from the bank. So that'll be a good spot. Or we're going to go and visit a water hole, but it's going to take us a little bit of time and maybe we get lucky. And then again, while you're driving, so now your guests know, okay, that's the plan. That's why we're driving along the river. And you can also say, and also check the tops of the trees. Great place for leopards to be sleeping and getting away from the flies and the heat of the day. So you can start mentioning all these things, and then you get your guests to be a part of the experience and actually help. You know how great it feels for a guest when they spot an animal before their safari guide, right? It's amazing. And then again, now you maybe see some tracks of elephants. Instead of just going, oh, there's some elephant tracks, they don't look very fresh. Maybe you get your guests out of the vehicle and you show them the elephant tracks, show them how to tell direction and maybe even age the track. And then you kind of go from there. Then maybe you see the elephant dung. You can do whatever. And it's like you create this whole story before you've even seen the animal. And that's so exciting. And that's for me what guiding is about. It's creating this holistic experience. You really start to understand what goes on within nature instead of just a bucket list safari where you drive around aimlessly and just respond to the radio, or you just bump into animals all the time. And before you know it, you've spent half your drive just finding elephants, and you maybe haven't seen anything, but your guests are enthralled with these little signs that are eventually going to lead you to the elephants. And it doesn't matter if you don't find them, at least you've had fun. And then guests start to realize, actually, hang on, it's quite difficult to find these animals and there's a lot of skill involved. So you can do that with almost any animal. Again, stopping, you can say, let's actually stop here. Let's listen. Maybe we'll hear some of the elephants breaking the branches. So there's so many different ways to kind of bring in the different senses, which I think is super important as well. So that's how I would kind of deal with it, Stephen, is try not to create this, where you just drive and drive and you don't see anything and you don't say anything. I mean, if you obviously, a lot of you are watching the sunrise and sunset safaris where the naturalists are out driving around, we talk a lot. But when you're on a safari, we don't talk that much because it is nice to sometimes just drive quietly and just have a little look around. It's for people on a first time, safari, it's a whole new experience, and not seeing power lines and tarred roads and, commercial vehicles or whatever the case, not seeing all those things is, um, it really, I don't even know what the word is. It takes your kind of takes your breath away, and it's important to have those moments and to let people just enjoy that too. And then, Brent, you've wondered, how do you deal with guests that only care about big game? This is such a tricky one. And then sometimes you have more than one person on your vehicle from different groups. So maybe you have the norm at most high-end lodges are then either have 4 or 6 guests on the vehicle. And let's say you've got 6 guests, you've got 3 different couples. One only wants to see birds, one's only interested in big cats, and the other group wants to learn about tracking, right? So that's tricky. You've got 3 very different topics that you need to kind of focus on, but you are able to bring them together. If you are stopping and listening, right, waiting to see if you can hear maybe the elephants breaking branches, perhaps there's some bird calls that are going on. Or you can say, when you're driving along the river, we're looking for elephants, we're looking for leopards, but there's, you can see a purple crested tarocco in these trees, or crested barbets, or so if we do see any of those little birds, we're going to stop and have a look too. And that way you're not just drowning people who aren't birders, because that's, I think, a horrible thing to do to people who are not birders. It can bore them, it can kind of ruin the experience. So you've just got to be quite strategic, little bits here and there, to try and check the boxes for everybody. And of course, you're going to sometimes get guests that are so difficult and they complain and that type of thing. But then my answer is, then if you want a specific experience, like you only have come here to do birding, then in order to do that, the best thing to do is to book a private vehicle. It does cost an arm and a leg. They're not affordable, but then that way you have your own guide and you can do whatever you want when you want. Unfortunately, if you're going on a safari and you don't request a private vehicle, then you have to also fit in with what the other guests want to do. So guiding is a lot about people management. And I think that this ties into what Catherine has asked. You said, well, you've mentioned that, the creating the story is very important skill to have as a guide, but then also people's expectations is another one. I mean, a lot of people have this misconception that you're just going to drive around and see animals everywhere, but that's really not the case. And people always say, will we be guaranteed to see animals? And I'm like, no. Absolutely not. We can't control what goes on in an ecosystem. And then even if you go to zoos, for an example, we've got a really high chance of seeing those animals. They too have enclosures and can decide that, today's not the day, I'm not going out. So it's really unpredictable. And if you are going on a safari for the first time, or just in general, don't have any expectations. Just take what you get and let the guides do their jobs, because they do know what they're doing and they know the areas really well too. So yeah, but also depends on where you go. And obviously at a lot of the higher end lodges, the guides that are employed there are typically quite experienced, or are really good people. That's a super important thing. And then the rest of the skills they'll slowly learn. So they'll be able to keep you entertained and having fun, even if you're not seeing wildlife.
Cheetahs are one of nature's prolific gems. Jump on safari as we celebrate International Cheetah Day. Alongside an interview with the woman who established International Cheetah Day, Dr. Laurie Marker, we will search for cheetahs live across Africa and share some of our best cheetah sightings from over the years. Join us for our cheetah chase. WildEarth, keeping up with the fastest land mammal on Earth.
Oliver, you said, do I have any pet peeves while I'm on drive? Oh, I suppose it's natural for for people to have pet peeves. Anyone that knows me knows that I cannot stand when people slurp. And I know that okay, I don't mind when it's a specific like cultural thing because there are certain cultures where it's the norm, and I'm able to put that aside. But it's tricky. It's really, really, really hard. Um, that's one of my worst. I normally I used to get so riled up and really like, let it get to me. I've got better. Now I will simply just maybe like move away, not like storm out, but like, just maybe go, oh, what's that over there? And just go for a little stroll. Uh, Another thing that is quite tricky to deal with is, when you're trying your absolute hardest to find something, and and you're just not winning. You're just not having any luck at all. And I always find when guests put a lot of pressure on you, that nature just goes, you're not going to see that today. So that's really difficult when people say, when are we going to see something next? Or uh, there's a lot of questions that we can't answer. Like, I can't tell you what the animal's thinking. For an example, don't have telepathy with wildlife, although I wish I did. Um, yeah, so that kind of becomes tricky. But again, I think it depends on how you guide and how you manage the situations. What else is a pet peeve? Now I'm trying to think of them. People moving around in vehicles a lot. My goodness, just sit still. That's really tricky when the vehicle's just like rocking from side to side, and then sometimes you have photographers on board and they're getting annoyed. I'm going to think of some more though, Oliver, and then I'll get kind of back to you on that. Oh, what another one is when you're in areas where you've got to drive serious distances to get from point A to point B, and then on the game drive radio, I'll give a sighting, an example of something that happened. We're driving around, we've been searching for a leopard, and we're right down in the southern section of this property that I used to guide at, and we weren't able to find a leopard. And then probably about an hour and a half before sunset, one of the guides said on the radio, but they were in the far, far north. I've just found a coalition of cheetahs, so two male cheetah. And I was like, oh, this is great. But I had my radio on a little bit. I didn't have it too soft. And then one of the guests said, oh my goodness, is there cheetah? Can we go there? And so I said to them, it's going to be quite tight because we've got to drive. A solid driving is just over an hour to just get into that area and then to try and, find them again. And I said, and then the other restriction that we have is that as soon as the sun sets, we don't view cheetah at night. So that becomes an area that we're not able to go into. So and they said, no, but we still want to go and try. And I said, okay. My suggestion would be that we get up extra early tomorrow morning before any of the other game drive vehicles have left, and then we head straight into that direction and see if we can't find the cheetah, and then watch them as the sun rises and that type of thing when it's nice and cool, and they could probably be a bit more active. And the guest said, no, 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 we don't want to do that. So off we went. And by the time we got there, the cheetah had already crossed out into another property that we didn't have traverse rights in. So now we didn't see the leopard and we didn't see the cheetah. And now we've got to rush home because it's quite late in the afternoon and camp is, really far away. And we didn't see much else that drive. We did see a couple of rhinos, which was great. And you can imagine everybody was quite sad because now we didn't get to see any of the big cats. So sometimes I think it's just important to be trusting again of your guides, even though you might hear an animal being called in on the radio. Uh, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best opportunity to view it. I'm thankful though that this elephant is just kind of lingering around, just sort of standing, probably wondering Where is everyone? Like the pool party was planned, but nobody showed up. Nigel, no friends. Just kind of swinging his head and his trunk around. He got all dressed up, covered himself in mud, hoping to bump into some of his mates, maybe impress if Carl. I don't know. I don't know, of course. Or maybe because it hasn't been so hot early on in the day that, there's been no need to rush down to the water's edge. And that's the wind we can hear. It's blowing at quite a speed when watching the trees just sway from side to side. There we go. One other individual coming down. It makes me chuckle though, because all I can think of is, when you were younger, or actually, I suppose it still applies now, and you were so looking forward to going to a social event, and I mean, it doesn't matter, uh, if you're a man or a woman, and you go there and you're hoping, oh, maybe there's going to be some ladies who have come down, I can chat, I can meet new people, and then you kind of arrive, and it's just other men or boys. All of them are there, all the opposite, just women. Sometimes it can be a little bit disappointing. And I think that's what's going on now with these bulls. They're like, oh, well, this is not what we quite expected. Even the zebra just behind that one elephant looks lost. Where is everyone? He keeps looking around though, so perhaps the herd is and just a little bit behind. Can't see if this is a stallion or. And then LG7, you said, did I ever do any competitive horseback riding? I did. I mainly competed. I was a show jumper, and I did I attempted cross country. I didn't really have horses for cross country though. Dressage, I was absolutely hopeless at, because I just found that I was untidy. And flat work is really important, and I did do a lot of flat work with my horses during training. But I didn't see the competitive side of it. So I had a really beautiful warm blood, and he had beautiful movements. So one of my friends used to compete him in dressage, and then I'd just do show jumping. I miss it a lot. It was such a fun sport. Although I wish my dad forced me to pursue golf, because I had to choose between golf and horse riding. I wasn't allowed to do all of the sports outside of school, because I did all of them already. I actually just didn't have enough time, but I was pretty good at golf too. But then I decided, as a 16-year-old spoiled brat, I was because that's the it thing. No one plays golf. So naive. And just going back to, not finding animals in the bush, this kind of conversation that we've had. Catherine, you said that you spent hours and hours tracking a black rhino, but you never found it, and it was still one of your best experiences. There we go. It's great that you have a positive outlook on it. And it's really difficult to find something like a black rhino. So if you are lucky enough to see one, uh, also grab a lotto ticket. And it just takes hours and hours. I have a funny story of a black rhino, though. Again, many, many years ago, when I was guiding at lodges, we'd stopped for a sundowner with the guests, and everybody had their drinks and snacks, and my tracker was actually chatting to the guests, and they were having a good time. And I said, I'm just going to sneak around and go use the luxury facilities, and off I went. And as women, we're typically in quite a vulnerable position. And I looked around, there was nothing. Anyways, and carrying on, I drank a lot of water that day. And the next minute, I heard like a crunch of a branch. So I was looking around me, and then I saw this black rhino. And I thought, what do I do here? Do I just pull my pants up and move away? Do I'm oversharing here? Do I finish? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. He's seen me, and he's kind of staring at me. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyways, carried on and reluctantly finished, and then kind of stood up really slowly and then just started moving back behind some of the vegetation. I wasn't that far away from the vehicle, and then moseyed on back. And then I said to the guests, okay, well, there's a black rhino just over there. But we weren't able to see him. Unfortunately, he ended up running away. That was fun. I've also seen black rhino on foot mating before. That was a really special sighting. I wasn't with any guests. I was with a friend of mine and does a lot of reserve management. And in fact, he monitors rhinos on the specific reserve. And the best way to do that is to go out on foot. And his dog that he trained, he has a German short-haired pointer. She's trained to track rhinos, track mud rhinos. So off we went, and we came across, there were three rhinos, two adult cows, and then a male. And then the male actually mounted one of the females. It wasn't a brilliant view. But we could kind of see what was happening between the trees, and they didn't even know we were there, which was great.
It's a festive Wilderland. Come along as we go in search for various festive wild animals for the 12 days of Christmas. From honking geese and roaring lions to hooting owls and leaping leopards. Tune in on your nearest device and join the festive fun. Watch the live show from the 14th to the 25th of December. Don't miss out. Embrace the festive season with WildEarth.
You didn't get much information though from the video, but it sounded like she had separated from the herd, and was going to drink water or was spending a little bit more time away from the herd. And then a pride of lions was at this waterhole that she was approaching, and she couldn't defend both of the calves, which was really, really, really sad to see. And unfortunately, one of them was taken by the lion, but then mom and the other calf got moved away. Can you imagine how distraught that elephant cow must have been to stand there watching and having to choose between one calf and another? So yeah, I mean, with impala, when I've seen predators of varying kinds who go after them and catch their youngsters, I've seen them coming back to try and fight, especially when impala lambs have been taken by jackals. But then again, an adult impala could potentially chase away that kind of animal. But an impala versus a leopard, there's a slim chance that it's going to be able to save its youngster. But then I also watched an amazing video of a wildebeest calf being taken by a leopard and mom coming in and hammering the leopard. I can't remember if the calf actually got away, but again, it's so crazy to sort of see. So I think you indigo. You are right, and we should definitely be a bit more conscious about how we phrase things as guides, but it doesn't always come out how we intend them to. So thank you for bringing that up. And keeping up with this esteem, you said that this elephant is thinking about drinking the entire waterhole before moving on. It's a fun place for elephants to hang around. Again, when there's lots of other elephants here, they will socialize. Um, but if they're not like here, they're not having to travel far distances to find food. So they can spend a bit more time around this waterhole, just enjoy it, cover themselves with mud, have a siesta. But if you think about it, if you go to Okakuyo, where it really is arid desert environment, the elephants don't stay for that long. The breeding herds come in, they have a drink, and then they move on. But that's just kind of all food related. And you can see, look how much of this sort of mud has been worn away where the elephants are constantly coming to drink from that pipe. At this point, they're going to just about dig it back up to the lodge or wherever the borehole is that is supplying this water hole with groundwater. And that's another problem, elephants digging up water pipes. You've got to make sure that they are nice and deep. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of work on your hands trying to find out where the animals have broken the pipe, and then the repair that needs to be done is really time consuming. Speaking of rhinos, Lenny, you said, aren't black rhinos supposed to be the more aggressive ones in comparison to the white rhino? That's the stigma that's been attached with black rhinos. Think about it, right? If you were living in a very dense environment and you couldn't see that far ahead of you, and all of a sudden, something just arrived and you were face to face with another animal or a person, you're going to get a little bit of a fright, right? And your response might be a bit more on the aggressive side, like you, because now they're right there. What are you going to do? You're going to be able to turn around. You're going to be able to run away, or do you need to stand and handle this kind of situation? So I think that's more likely what happens with black rhino, because I haven't had that many like aggressive encounters with black rhino. I've had most of them have been really pleasant. I mean, you go to East Africa in Kenya, for an example, in the Masai Mara and the Mara Triangle. It's no secret that there are black rhinos there, but they're really hard to find. But when I have seen them out in the open, not a care in the world, but they can see everything around them. Some are more nervous, though. They have maybe not as habituated to the vehicles, and then they'll kind of charge off, but just look for cover. Uh, White rhinos, though, don't be fooled by them. Yes, a lot of the time they follow you around like you're almost like they're your dog. I've had that a couple of times on walks where white rhino have actually tracked me and found me. And they are quite relaxed and placid, but again, that situation can change. And there are many videos out there of white rhinos charging and chasing vehicles. So you can't be complacent about around any wild animal, even if it just eats grass and leaves. You're still going to be really, really careful.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Then our Fan of the Month is a competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search #WildEarthFan and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers and will win a private virtual safari. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
April M, you said, wow, that water is going away fast. It is. It's dropped substantially, and it's just getting less and less. And maybe today, though, with it not being that many elephants and other animals coming down to drink, the water will get a chance to just top up a little bit more. But the wildlife continues to come through at night as well. So it's tricky. I mean, I just look at what my swimming pool does. I find I have to top it up more and more because of how hot it is and how quickly that water is evaporating. So throwing all those things into the mix, it's just going to disappear so quickly. Blacksmith lapwings are not happy about something. Also, a pied crow landing to the left, and some impala coming to have a drink. Yesterday, I was watching the impala lambs. There must have been about 8 of them, and they were all frolicking about and testing their legs. And you could just see that the females were just sort of standing there going, "Oh my goodness, what now?" While they all bounded about. It was so precious to see. But as you know, at 1 o'clock, which is just a couple of seconds away, we're going to have the Afri cameras join us, which is great because that brings in a whole host of other water holes that we can sit with. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully more animals will be around.